Welcome to the Leaderish Podcast with your hosts, Regina and Doris. Hey, Doris. How's it going?
Hey, Regina. It's going very well. I am so excited about our guest today. And the reason that you and I even have a podcast is because of Heather. And I know we celebrated our friendiversary a few weeks ago. We met on a walk that Heather organizes every Wednesday. And we have been talking about having Heather on our podcast, I think, since day one. And it's finally come to fruition. We finally made it work. The calendars came into alignment, and we are now about to celebrate our 1-year anniversary of this podcast and us together, Regina. So I'm very excited to have Heather on the podcast. She is a fitness enthusiast, as am I, and I know the subject is very passionate to her, and I'd love for you to introduce yourself, Heather, to our listeners. Tell us a little bit about yourself and even why you started the walk that brought Regina and me together.
Well, I'm excited to be here because this is, first of all, it's an honor. It's always an honor to be invited to be on a podcast. But I love your story, and I share your story all the time when I'm promoting my walking group. I am, just my introductions, my name is Heather Wolcott, and I am a board certified health and wellness coach. I'm a certified functional health coach. I'm a certified personal trainer and sport nutrition specialist. So lots of things in the world of health and wellness and fitness and nutrition, which is really, I look at it as lifestyle. I embody that as just how I live and how I'd love to see other people live. I moved to Tennessee 4 years ago, and I love community. And that is how I met both of you initially, was through networking and through trying to find community, which is also a really important part of health. So Doris and you and I met back at a few networking things, and Regina and I had just recently met in Brentwood. I remember we were in Brentwood and just connected, and you showed up to the walking group, and then you guys met. But I was encouraged to start a walking group after I'd lived here for maybe 3 to 6 months by my realtor, of all things. She just said, you need to start a walking group. And I was like, I don't know enough people to invite to a walking group. And by that next April, I moved here in July, and by that April, I knew enough people to invite to a walking group, and I just put it out there. And I really started it because it's just another way to create community through fitness and through wellness and through health, and not just always sitting and meeting up for coffee or sitting and meeting for lunch. And those things are great. But if I can walk and talk with someone and cover a lot of ground, and both figuratively and literally, a lot of conversation ground and a lot of mileage, it's like a great win for me. That's like a double win. So that's how I started it. And so we have the Wednesday walking group, and both of you guys have been there, and Doris is a regular during the summer, which is super fun. So I love it.
Regina
That's
is
okay.
not.
Regina's will be back someday.
Yeah, no, I know I won't. I think your walking group is amazing. We have talked about this so many times. I am just a slow walker, and you guys, you want to talk about deep conversation, fast movement. It all happens together, and I love it, and I loved watching it, and I love being a part of it. I just can't keep up. I am not quite as much of a fitness enthusiast. I do like to take care of myself, and it's okay. Different things for different people, which is why I love that we're having this conversation today, because there are so many things that you can do to support your health and wellness. It doesn't just have to be one thing. What works for Doris may not work for me. What works for Heather may not work for me, and that's okay. There are things out there that do work for me and help me support my own health and wellness as a working woman and as a leader.
Yeah, I love that. And I agree. Doris, what do you want to say to that?
Yeah, I completely agree. And as I mentioned at the beginning, that I am a fitness enthusiast. I've been working out my entire life. I started swimming when I was a toddler. My mom took me to swim lessons, possibly before I could walk. I don't really remember that, but I started swimming very young, and then later biking, and very later in life started running. But now I'm passionate about staying fit and healthy and eating well and trying to bestow that upon other people. I think for our listeners, this is a leadership podcast. And I know one of the things that's important to our listeners is how we can talk about wellness and nutrition in a corporate setting or in a work setting. And I know you had some thoughts and ideas, Heather, on how to bring that conversation to the forefront with a leadership team.
Yeah. And as you guys know, leadership begins with setting an example. I mean, you can't expect your employees or even your coworkers, or I mean, really, if you're the boss, right? If you're the leader, if you're managing the group, if you're leading a company or a business, you need to be doing what you say you want them to be doing. So it's always going to start with setting an example and putting things in place that accommodate your team or your employees and your whole workforce and your workspace, that's manageable and doable, but that you participate in as well. So I think if you're talking about bringing health and wellness to your company or to your business or to your work environment, you have to believe in it and you have to exemplify it. I really think it starts with that. People are going to copy what you do more than what you say. They're watching their leaders and how they live their lives. And if they're talking about bringing, wellness programs in, or, trying to improve the health or even just morale by helping people improve their mood and their energy and their work productivity, they need to be exemplifying that and really sticking to what they want their employees to do.
Let me turn that around just real quick. So what if the leader is not in a position, or the leader doesn't seem like they care about fitness, nutrition, or wellness, where you have an employee team who perhaps does? Is it possible to start maybe going the bottom up
Yeah.
rather than the top down? How can you reverse that so that maybe the employees that care about wellness want to convince the leadership team that they need to embody a wellness program, or they need to adopt something or change some things? Maybe the stress is so great, or they notice that burnout is
Yeah.
happening and they have some suggestions for leadership. Any thoughts on
Hmm.
going bottom up as opposed to
Oh, I
top
love
down?
that. And I love that you just flipped it. Yeah, grassroots. I mean, that's what a grassroots movement is. You get the people who are impacted and affected by whatever's happening or not happening to come together. And that, again, that is also leadership. You don't have to be the top person to be a leader, right? It's just taking action
Mm-hmm.
and walking a talk and getting more people involved. So I love that. I love a grassroots movement. I think if there's a handful of people in a company who love to walk at lunchtime, or want to create a step challenge, or want to have a rotation of bringing healthy snacks into the whatever their break room is, and it's like igniting a fire, right? A fire starts with a spark. So very good point, because it doesn't have to be the boss person, it doesn't have to be the boss man, the boss woman that implements all these changes. It can be someone who's just an employee who cares about something and getting a few other people together, a few other coworkers, and just starting something, because that lights the spark and it becomes contagious and you get more people involved. So sometimes that's even more effective because you're doing it with your peers, and you're doing it with your coworkers, and you feel like you're maybe more with your people doing it with your peers. I also think that a leader can bring great change and ideas and excitement and enthusiasm to wellness if they're excited about it as well. I think it just takes one person or a couple people. I don't think it really matters where you are in the corporate ladder. I think you can be anywhere.
So when I worked for a organization, and they had one of their office locations was a warehouse production floor. So huge space, air conditioned, amazing. And what we had noticed were there were a few people that during their breaks or their lunchtime would walk the production floor. And that was the spark that started trickling. Now, people who didn't actually work in the warehouse, who worked in the office, started walking, which in turn created this movement to measure out, to figure out how many times you had to go around to get a
Wow.
mile. And you could track that. And then there were footprints. So now you had footprints that were like, you got this, keep going, you can
Wow.
do it, motivational footprints. The spark kept growing into a fire, which then turned into a walking challenge in the building, where different employees would join the challenge and then keep tabs of how much they walked in the building. And then there were prizes
Oh
given
yeah.
away, simple prizes or whatever. But you're so right about the spark. And it didn't even dawn on me. It wasn't an executive that said, we should turn that into a walking path. I mean, it's air conditioned in there. It's a quarter mile around or a half a mile going around. If you walked it twice, you got a mile in. It wasn't a leader who did that. It was an employee who just, her and her friend would walk every day. And we noticed it. And then more people started doing it. The spark of
Yeah.
wellness.
What were the health benefits that the employees noticed, Regina? Were there some benefits beyond just the prizes and the challenges from a fitness perspective?
Oh, I mean, for sure, right? I think that anytime you get your body moving, you see less foggy brain, right? You have more blood circulation, you're more productive. When you go home, you don't feel bad about yourself because you've taken a little break to also care for yourself. If you get a lunch hour, maybe it takes you 15 minutes to eat. So, what are you going to do with the rest of your 45 minutes? Don't go back to your desk. That's the hint. The answer is don't go back to your desk. Go do something. And the overall well-being was increased, but also the sense of community, because now you start walking with people that you didn't know. So we're going back to right where Heather started, the sense of community. You start meeting people in the organization that you'd never met before because you're now walking the track together and you spark up a little conversation and now you're making
And
friends. So you've
and you
got
just
both.
found another person that maybe you didn't know at work who has the same interest as you do. They like to walk or they like to move, and maybe you would have never interacted with that person because you're on different floors or different departments, but it's a common love or interest that you have, and then that connects people even more and creates another sense of community. And like going back to my walking group, I've got women who show up who are from different areas of my life. I mean, everyone pretty much goes because they know me in some capacity, whether it's online or, but like you two didn't know each other. I'm bringing these women in together from my son's elementary school to my daughter's high school to Women Connect or whatever it is, and they're finding that they have a lot in common in other ways. And so, yeah, you find that in the workplace. Just because you work at the same company doesn't mean that you know each other or that you all have the same common interest until you start engaging in activities that connect you. It's great. I love that story. So
Yeah.
62% of employers report in healthcare costs due to wellness programs. So
Wait, say that again. Hold on. What did you say?
62% of employers report a reduction in healthcare costs due to wellness programs. So every $1 that's spent on wellness brings an ROI of $2. Think about it. you
Oh
get
my
your you get your
goodness.
employees, well, you don't get them, but they get themselves. Someone gets them walking. Let's just use your walking example. So all the health benefits that come with
Sure.
walking right now, we see a lot of behaviors are chain reaction. So they start walking better, so then they start thinking about what they're going to bring for lunch, or they're not going out for fast food because they're staying back to walk with their coworkers or whatever, right? So these behavior changes start having a domino
Yeah.
effect. And now maybe you've lowered maybe their blood pressure's lowered, maybe they're making healthier decisions, they've lost some weight, their immune system has strengthened, they're taking fewer sick days. So you see this reduction in healthcare. They're more productive at work and draining the system less from healthcare because of these healthy behaviors, which is great.
I love that.
Wow.
I love that. Yeah, and I also the last corporate employer that I worked for paid everyone $50 a month for health memberships or gym memberships. And I think just about every employee took advantage of that. And what I really loved is that when we went to COVID and all the gyms closed, they decided that if you had a membership, either an online membership or, for example, I had purchased a Peloton and I had a monthly fee that I was paying for on my Peloton, and they'd made the decision that they were going to put that $50 toward my Peloton payment
Wow.
because the whole idea was to get employees healthy, to encourage them to go out and walk or participate in some type of fitness activity. And so I like I definitely thank them for the
That's
Peloton that's in
fantastic.
my gym that I use just about every day. And I think it's so important that leaders recognize that and that one of the benefits that they should consider is offering them some type of monetary benefit to get them healthy
Mhm.
through gym memberships or online affiliations or some type of cost benefit. Because like you said, that $1 invested in something like that will, at the end of the day, save them
Yeah.
money in healthcare costs.
Yeah. You want healthy workers. You want healthy employees. It's going to cost your company less to have a staff or however big your company is, right? It could be on a larger scale or on a really small scale. A sick employee who's not producing and not able to show up is going to have a ripple effect somewhere down the line with overall, whether it's just income for them because they're having to take days off, but just for the company's success overall, financially for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting. It's fascinating. Okay, so let's talk about what is better for health and wellness, remote work or
Yeah, this is
hybrid
really
work.
interesting, and I hadn't thought about it too much until I started looking into it a little bit. So you have really, I mean, let's just say before COVID, everything is like pre-COVID, after post-COVID. Most people were just working in an office every day. I mean, 7 days a week. That was just
Mhm.
the norm, and then everything shifted to the other extreme. And then I don't know, depending on where you lived, at some point, a lot of companies met you in the middle, and they let you come back and also work from home. So what I'm seeing in statistics is the people who are fully working in person in an office and the people who are fully working hybrid at home report the same level of stress, depression, anxiety. So it's more of a stress, depression, and anxiety issue, and less productivity compared to the demographic has the hybrid option. They get a little bit of work, in the office, and they're working a little bit at home, and whatever that looks like for different people, whether it's, certain number of days or hours. And I think this again comes back to community. I mean, you're in person, which is great because you're seeing your coworkers, but you're also maybe trapped and you're stuck, and they can demand a whole lot of you when you're right there, right? You're easy access. You can be called in for almost anything. Maybe you're not getting outside a lot. Maybe you don't get to take your lunch break. They're getting you at that. Then you've got the fully remote at home, and then it could be the same thing. You're locked in your office in your house all day because maybe you've got other family members that you need to just avoid and be away from, and it can also seem lonely, and you can also be available all the time because you're just sitting there with your phone and your laptop open and ready. But when you've got that in between, you're in a little bit, you're home a little bit, the behaviors that seem to be affected the most would be opportunities for exercise, healthier eating options, and more sleep. And those are three main pillars of health, right? We're looking at sleep, we're looking at nutrition, we're looking
Mm-hmm.
at movement. When you have the flexibility of, working from home so you can sleep in a little bit, or you've got a gym in your house or a Peloton, you can go downstairs, ride your bike, do your exercise, do whatever you need, and then jump up on a call. Or you've got time in between calls or whatever you have, meetings, and you can sneak away and get an exercise in, or go for a walk, or sit outside, bring your laptop outside and do some work. My husband does that sometimes, and I would do that sometimes. So there's some flexibility there. Obviously, sleep is going to make a difference, the movement, and then nutrition. I mean, that can also go either way, depending on what your lifestyle is like. You have a kitchen available to you. You're not limited to a cafeteria menu or running and getting fast food. So you just have more options. I think it is important if you have the opportunity to go into the office. I still think there's something really important about that. I think it's a mindset. I think it keeps you maybe a little bit more professional at times, depending on what your job is, because you're dressing for work, you're showing up, you are connecting, you're interacting with your coworkers, and that social connection, which we started off talking about, is also really important for mood, anxiety, and depression. So we don't want to leave out the social component of health because that's obviously a huge piece of it. But having the flexibility of going back and forth seems to have the best outcomes for most people. And I think that's fascinating. I think it's exciting that we have that opportunity.
I think that the hybrid work has more impact than some of the additional programs that organizations add in. I think about the counseling or therapy. I haven't heard a ton of positive things about the counseling or therapy that organizations offer. I had an organization that offered us the Calm app. I never understood that. Okay. But why are you spending $6 a month on me to have the Calm app? There are way more things that we could do with that money for the organization. And there's just a few other of those weird, like little programs that organizations kind of put together. And I find that the programs that start with a spark, that create community and healthy choices together is what affects the change within the organization for health and wellness. Doris?
Yeah, I was going to ask about mindset. So you said that you used the word mindset a second ago, Heather, and I think that's so important. My question is, how do we shift that mindset when there are going to be employees that don't want to shift? And I know before we started recording, you shared an example of someone that you're working with, and you're working on her mindset. You're trying to shift that mindset. And she has a certain desire, but not enough of a desire to really shift into healthy habits. How do we get that change to happen? I used to work with someone who just wouldn't quit smoking. I just kept harping on him. And obviously, when you harp on someone who smokes, that's not going to get him to stop smoking. It never works. And I wanted to share pictures of what a lung looks like when you smoke your entire lifetime. But I don't think that that doesn't impress somebody. That doesn't get them to change. If you don't like to work out, you may not work out. But how do we get that shift to happen, that mindset shift?
That's a great question. And it really is it's probably one of the harder hills to climb in coaching and in working with people, because there's the stages of change. There's not ready for change, there's contemplation of change, there's ready for action, and then there's like people who are active action, they want to do it right now, and then it's maintaining, and so you kind of have to look at where people are in the stages of change, because that mindset has to go along with it. You can't get someone to stop smoking and change their mindset if they're not even contemplating changing the behavior. So you have to meet people where they are. And I have worked with a lot of clients as a coach that have been all over on the spectrum of mindset. They're so ready, they want to do it now. And there are others who are meeting with me, and we're talking and we're talking and we're talking, and they're talking, and talking is great, but they're still afraid to just even step out of the comfort zone and shift the mindset to look at things a little differently. So you just have to meet people where they are. What I like to do as a coach is always bring it back to them and ask them, what would it look like if you were to change this behavior? You're talking about this behavior, you're talking about whatever it might be. Starting to work out. Let's say it's starting to work out. You've been talking about it a lot, nothing's happening. What would it look like? Let's just say you did it. Let's just say you did start working out 2 or 3 times a week. What would that look like? What do you think that might give you on the other side? What could be some of the benefits? And it has to come from them. They have to identify what they're going to get out of it. I can tell them all the facts and stats in the world. Like you said, you can show them the picture of the lung. They have to personalize it, and they have to apply it to their lives and to their reality. So when they start talking about the benefits of this one behavior change that's going to impact their lives, maybe it's the relationship with their spouse or their kids or weight loss or better health, then they start thinking about it a little bit more. Mindset's a hard one. I think it's the perspective that you give people when they're stuck and they're not sure if they don't want to change. They don't really want to do the new thing. And it's trying to give them a different perspective. Like, what if you did? What if you did? Or what are you afraid of if you do? And just getting a little bit deeper. But it's a hard one. There's also a girl I'm working with right now in her 20s, and sweet girl. And I worked with her 1 or 2 years ago, and she's for some coaching sessions. And then she just came back to me a few weeks ago, and she has been labeled her whole life and on medication for anxiety, depression, OCD, ADD, ADHD. She's 29 years old. And she's a great example because I've worked with her now for a lot of times between last time and now. And she identifies with those labels so much. And it does affect her work. She has a hybrid work situation. because she leans into that, well, my OCD was really bad today, so I just wasn't able to get anything done. And my ADD, I just was all over the place. And I had an anxiety attack. And so she's just living this an identity. And so even in the workforce, in the workplace, people who have these labels upon them or an identity that they identify with, I'm just lazy. I'm not an exerciser. I don't eat healthy, whatever it is. And we finally had a breakthrough conversation where I told her, if you want to make a change, you have to change the identity that you're associating with. So you're this person over here right now, but are you ready to become this new person who does things differently and doesn't attach everything to your labels and to that identity? And she is. And within a week, she met with a functional medical doctor. She started doing neurofeedback and she was really excited about it. But doing the neurofeedback was her idea. We finally had that call and that conversation that said, I don't want to be these labels anymore. I want to be this new person. And that's where that mindset really shifted. She was ready to change the way she identified and the way she saw herself. And again, that applies to anybody in their job, in their lives. It's who do you want to be and who do you want to become?
That is
So
amazing. I love that breakthrough, that getting away from labels. And I know that we all put labels on ourselves. And whether it's I'm not thin enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not successful enough, I'm not whatever enough. And we think that's who we are, but it's not. And I think that being able to say, well, where do we want to be? And getting away from the labels and who do we see ourselves as? That's brilliant. I love that, Heather. Thank you.
Heather, what can leaders do to help their team members or the people that work with them or around them? What can they do to encourage personal responsibility for health? I mean, and without like the judgment zone, because that's a fine line between encouragement or feeling like you've been encouraged and feeling like you've been judged. What could leaders do to help encourage that?
I think a good leader listens more than they talk. And I would maybe a little indirect, a roundabout answer to your question is talking to your employees and your coworkers about what they feel like their needs are or what they would be interested in doing and listening to them before trying to implement something. Maybe talking about some pain points. What would encourage you in the workforce, or what would encourage you at work to make some healthier decisions or to take a longer lunch break and get outside? I think hearing from your employees or your or whoever it is, touching on their pain points and then addressing them instead of appointing and assigning, this is what we're going to do, this is what I want you doing. I think it's just listening. Even having a survey. What would you like to see? What do you like that we're doing that you want to keep? What are some new things that you'd like to implement that's health, towards better health and wellness in our workspace? What are we currently doing that you think we should get rid of that's not helping and that's not contributing to a healthier work environment? And get that feedback before you make any big decision, because the thoughts that you have might not really align with the pain points of your employees.
Yeah, and what they need or what they want may not be the same as what you need or what you want. So then there's also that flexibility and allowing some flexibility there in order to meet your needs the way that you need to meet them. I love that. Just ask. Sometimes we just think that we have to do this big thing and we have to like push it as leaders, but really all we have to do
like
is
I
ask.
said, good leaders listen. They listen to what the people who they're leading and what they're complaining about or what they're excited about, and then they address those. Standing desks, for example. Standing desks in the workplace can be phenomenal. I mean, it's a great implementation. It's a great option. The ones that go up and down, because you don't want to really stand for 8 hours. That's really not solving the problem. But there's a lot of health benefits with a standing desk, for example. Now, I've got a client who, she works in a corporate setting. She's pulled in a million directions. She's pretty much burnt out, but she has a lot of structural instability issues. She's overweight and she's working on that. She has a lot of health challenges. She can't stand for long periods of time because she's got some structural issues in her back. It's to the point where when she stands for a long period of time, she's in so much pain, she starts sweating, like profusely sweating. So she's got a huge challenge. And the biggest nightmare for her would have to be at a standing desk that couldn't move up and down. So that's not going to meet her needs. What she needs
Right.
is more downtime in between all these calls so she can get up from sitting and go walk around and move around. But she's booked back to back to back. They kind of just, she supports a lot of different groups, so she doesn't get a lot of downtime, and she meets during her lunch break. So it's, again, listening to your employees. She doesn't want a standing desk. She just wants to have some longer breaks in between meetings and calls so she can get outside and walk, or she can have time to make the lunch that she
Yeah.
brought. So again, it's listening. The hybrid work models, for some people that maybe working at home is the absolute worst option for them and they want to be fully in person 100% of the time, they feel better there. Listening to that and honoring that, say, you got it, this is your office, your space. And so again, it just comes back to listening and seeing what your employees need and what they want and what they would be excited about. Have them generate some ideas, like you said, grassroots. What's a grassroots thing? You guys, I've heard you, some
Mm-hmm.
of you guys are into running, do you want to put a team together and run a race? Or some of you guys are into the Peloton, like maybe you guys all get on and do it at the same time on your off days. There's all these different ways to do it.
Right.
Yeah, and it maybe doesn't include a Calm app that we're going to force our employees to download on their
Like, no one
phones
needs any more
and try
tech.
to
That's the
No
last
more
thing I
tech.
needed.
Is another
Another
tech
exactly,
app.
No,
exactly.
you don't need another reason to look at your phone at all.
Yeah,
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you for just
Yeah.
breathing life into that.
yeah.
Oh, well, we're running out of time for today. This has been an excellent conversation. I know that I have several things that have resonated with me as you guys have kind of heard me reiterate those. The spark is one of them. Like everything starts with a spark. Where's the spark? And all of health and wellness does not have to be leader led. It's leader supported, and be there with your team and support your team. Doris, what about you?
I think a big one for me, and I've been thinking about this week, is judgment. Is that we have to be so careful about judging other people. We don't know where they are. And Heather, you mentioned this 29-year-old with alphabet soup after her name in terms of the labels, and she finally had a breakthrough. You continue to have conversations with her, and I hope that she also has conversations with her leadership team. But we might judge someone like that where, oh boy, Tina didn't show up for work again today. What's her excuse today? And there's judgment in that. How do we move away from that judgment? We don't know where she is, where she's coming from. Yeah, maybe she's tied to some labels, but we need to give
Yeah.
grace with that and stop judging people for things we don't understand ourselves. And as you've said a couple of times, meet them where they are, have those conversations, remove the judgment, find out what their pain points are, have an open and honest conversation, and try to give them what they need to provide a better, healthy environment for their workplace, wherever that is.
Well
Love that.
said. Awesome. Well, that is about all that we have time for today. Heather would love to talk to you. So if you want to reach out to Heather, you can find her information in the show notes. She'd love to sit and chat with you and see what needs that you have that she can help you meet. And you can find Doris and I's links in the show notes too. We always love hearing from you guys. And I especially love the texts that you guys send. I do, if you send them directly to me, I do send them directly to Doris and whoever our guest is. So, keep sending me those messages. Guys, we love to hear from you. And we'd also love a review. So if you have a moment and you can leave us a 5-star review, that would be wonderful. But the biggest compliment you can give us is to share this episode with someone who you think needs it so that they can hear Heather's message and learn how to bring health and wellness into their organization. And as always, if you're interested in being a guest and you have an engaging topic, we would love to talk to you. So reach out to us at leaderishpodcast@gmail.com and we'll get back to you and set up some time. All right, folks. Well, that is about it for today. So I will end us with a cheers and some bubble water.
Cheers.